where we bring together experienced and emerging meeting professionals to discuss hot-button topics in today's meetings industry. I'm your co-host, Yiming Piansai.
And I'm your co-host, Sarah Robertson. I'd like to introduce Jaclyn Bernstein, president and owner of Empire Force Events, and, may I mention, a Smart Woman winner. She won the Visionary Award in 2023. And we are also joined today by Alexis Dick, an event planner at Heating, Air Conditioning, and Refrigeration Distributors International, or HARDI. Thank you both for being here today. We will be discussing forming business relationships and networks.
My first question, the thing we always talk about at Smart Meetings, we were out of work for 2 years and we had to adjust socially how to deal with that. And I'm really curious, in that span of time, how did you guys maintain relationships with people? And what was the hardest part about meeting new people and maintaining the ones you already had?
Well, it's a great question that you ask. And obviously it was horrific what we went through, obviously the people that we lost and all during the pandemic. However, I think all of us will look back, and although, yes, my business furloughed an entire company, people that had worked here 20 years, 18, 16, 14 years. And we also didn't do any business between March and December of an entire year. And my big phrase was, how does a business stay in business that doesn't do business? But we are still here. We can talk more about that. But I know that when I look back at that time from the pandemic, which 2020 through 2022, right, that was still going on, that there was a special moment in time that there were relationships forged in a different way than any of us has ever made a relationship during that time than there ever was in our world. And unless, God forbid, there's another pandemic, we might not see that again, or we would obviously operate in that differently. This medium where we're sitting here and talking now through Zoom, WebEx, whatever it may be, Teams, it gave us the opportunity to connect, barefoot. But I want us to focus on, however, the positive parts about it. The power of the chat, that you might not be able to stand up in a room on a chair and scream out to everyone what you're thinking at the event. But when you're on a medium like this, you put something in a chat, and if everyone's reading it, they're hearing what you have to say. I've had people reach out from a chat. Hey, I like what you said in there. I'd like to get to know you better. Maybe it's business, maybe they're a vendor, maybe they're just someone that becomes a partner. So we look back and think of that camaraderie. Also, the concept of those that were friendly competitors or do the same thing that you do truly went away during that time. People, a lot of the caterers were banding together with resources. No one can get to my kitchen. I don't have staff. Event people were saying, how do you do it at your company? We're going to need people. So we spoke to more people that do what we do than we normally did prior to that, because there was a reason during that time to come together. I founded the Live Events Coalition of New York, New Jersey, and advocated for our industry, and people that just, I don't want to say never talked, but that didn't think that they would work together and talk. And work just could have been chit-chatting. Hey, how do you do this? What are we going to do to survive? How are you figuring out your PPP? How are you paying people? It just became a time that I look back fondly, but we didn't actually think about that when we were in it. But there's something to be said about what we forge. And I say constantly to our clients and to all these partners, do not forget the closeness that we forged then during the pandemic, because that is something that we should continue. And we told this to our clients of ways to operate. So I know it's a long-winded answer there, but I hope what I said resonated with everyone out there. And whatever we did then, we really need to continue it going forward.
Definitely. No, that's fair. Alexis, in your experience during the pandemic, what was it like for you? Was it harder to talk to people, to communicate, to also create and maintain your existing links with people?
Yeah, the pandemic is a little bit when my career kind of started, actually, in event planning. So I was working for Bath and Body Works at the time, their home office, which is located here in Columbus, Ohio. And unlike a lot of other businesses, they actually were booming. I mean, the demand for sanitizers, for hand soaps, things like that. We had crazy business, anything like unprecedented that they had seen before. And so what that meant was, they were looking at how can we revamp stores? How are there ways that we can get product to people, which kind of led for us to actually have a lot of virtual meeting and sending things. And because there was such that high connection, that high business, I actually got to meet a lot more people than I think I would have in a non-pandemic circumstance. And it also created kind of a raw experience where, although I was new and an emerging professional, I had similarities with everyone else who had been working at the company, for 5, 20, 30 years, because we're all stuck at home. We're all kind of doing the same things in the evening. And it kind of created a little bit of a family for me as onboarding into the professional world, which was really nice.
It's really interesting.
I'd like to jump in with a sort of broader question. I'd like to hear from you both. Where do you see the importance or relevance in developing a professional network and developing these business relationships? Do you think they are important, or do you think they're not quite as important, or somewhere in between? I'd like to know why.
I can start. I would 100% say they're relevant. I use them absolutely all the time. Since I did start my event planning career in a pandemic, completely virtual experience, I lacked a lot of that experience that I would have gotten, beginning of what it looks like in person, how that attendee experience should feel. So it's very beneficial for me to reach out to a friend or, someone I met at another hotel or another conference, and honestly, just bounce ideas off of, what did you do pre-pandemic? What are you kind of doing now? What's that happy middle where I could use something that used to be in the past, but also modernize it to make it more engaging? Because we've noticed, even in the event industry, especially my company currently, that attendance is a lot higher. People have put a lot of value on networking, expanding their network, expanding their professional career post-COVID. And so how are you making the most of your event?
Perfect thing to say. And what you said earlier, when you mentioned how you were able to create relationships and work differently because you were starting your career during the pandemic. What an interesting way to look at that, right? Again, there's pandemic positives. Out of adversities comes some good, and you're definitely exemplifying that here. For me, and I always go back to what we do for a profession, right? We're in the event, the word gathering became very popular during the pandemic. We're in the gathering business. That's what you heard on the media, that the gathering business is shut down. We finally got our play in the media, except it happens to have been in the bad way because we were shutting down, not doing work. However, what we're doing for the most part are fun, interactive experiences. It could be a boring meeting that you just have to do, but there's going to be a chance to have food and beverage and communicate with people. You want to make it a positive experience. The company I own, Empire Force Events, is New York's longest independent and locally owned destination manager company. So we manage, obviously, events and experiences in our destination, all for corporations, not social. But the work that we do, ultimately, even if it's a meeting or meet and greet at the airport or an activity or buying out a museum with decor and entertainment, it's a social experience. So that should also start with the work that you do with the relationships of the people you work with. When a client emails us or we get a lead, however it may be, and they don't want to talk in order to start the conversation, pun intended, of the project, we say we are going to innovate your live event experience. Even if it's a virtual experience like we're doing right here, people are going to still be talking and communicating. They're alive, right? So we say, if you don't want to talk with us to start innovating your live event experience, how can we know that we're doing it right from when we actualize your live event experience? So the relationships that you build help you get there, again, with clients and vendors. And people like to work with people that they like or that they know. I'm a founder of the International Live Events Association, lifetime legacy member now, won their Lifetime Achievement Award, Meeting Professionals International, been honored with their Hall of Fame Award here in New York. And I feel that because of industry involvement, even if you just go to a cocktail reception at a hotel showing you a new ballroom, the people you're going to meet live, and you get to chat with them. Hey, what did you think of this? Did you see that? Look at that over there. What do you think? What did you see on TV for the Grammy Awards that were just on? What do you think about the events? You create that dialogue and experience, and that person could be someone that you could just call and say, listen, I don't have any business for you, but I'm wondering, what do you think of this? Or I don't need your vendor here, but I need it somewhere else in the country. Can you refer me to someone? You could become a spokesperson, spokesclient for just your vendors in your community. And as much as we like to think we know all the right vendors for the right projects, we learn something every time we go to the industry events. Even though I'm not an emerging leader or person in the industry, I find going to an event saying, I just learned something new today. I met a new vendor. I learned a new way to do something. And we tend to, yes, work with people that we know. But if you don't develop that relationship, especially when we work so hard, right? What do they say? Our profession is one of the top 5 most stressful, strenuous, crazy thing. Crazy. We are crazy for doing what we do. But if you're not doing this with a team that you can count on and like when it's the long hours and it's demanding, then there's no purpose to what we're doing, because you have to really love this. This is not that 9 to 5 job. Most events don't happen. You're loading in maybe before 9 a.m., but you're ending way later after that. So the relationships is how I built my entire profession in our company. The company I own, I worked at when I came out of college, and then I bought it. And I never would have been able to do that if it wasn't with the people that I had met in order to develop the relationships. And it's not always about relationships with clients. You're only as good to your clients as your supplier partners are to you. That is a big mantra of ours. So if you go to an industry event and all you got were business cards from vendors, don't think you didn't succeed, because they're going to help you in servicing the clients that you do have.
So as you're kind of, building your library of people that for people who, some people aren't really good at doing that. It's really hard for people to put themselves out there and be like, hey, I want to know you. I want to get to know you. I want us to have a connection. For those people who don't have that natural ability, is there any things you can offer us, ideas of how to widen your network?
So I will say I have done both things, where you go to a conference that you're just attending, probably solo, you're the only one from your company, and you kind of sit there and you're like, man, everyone else has a pair that they came with, or you feel like they know everyone that you walk by. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's you again, I haven't seen you, and I did an event like that, and I will say I do regret it. Looking back, I was like, man, I don't feel like I got the most out of that. All these people are posting on LinkedIn, and it's like, I got to meet so-and-so, and I got to partake in this amazing opportunity. And so when I went to my next event, sometimes when you're going out, in my scenario, vendors will reach out to you, kind of to meet you, learn about your events. How could you partner together? What locations are you going to in the future, and things like that. And I told myself I was going to do that. And so I took all the emails, I took all the invites, and I was like, you know what, let's go get lunch. You know what, let's get up in the morning and go get coffee. And I will say, just taking even one of those, you don't have to do, all 20 emails that you get or whatever it may be, but taking just that one leap of faith. One, you get to learn the city that you're in a lot more. And two, you get to meet someone, and it's not necessarily just industry related. It might just be oh, what are you thinking of the city so far? How was your flight into the place? And you start out with this casual small talk that, you kind of bounce energies off of each other. And so if you're doing really well, your 30-minute coffee might turn into an hour and a half, and you just keep going, and it's a lot of fun. And then if it is, it's like, hey, what session do you have next? And then you kind of partner together, and then you end up seeing it, even if it's a 10,000 person conference, you kind of start to see those similar faces, and you wave, and you feel like you have kind of a home, even though there's so many people there. There's no way that you're going to get to know all of them. But once you start to even connect, I'd say even 5 faces, you start to see them all around. And so I've made it a goal of myself to at least say hi or introduce myself to 5 new people every day. If I am at a conference by myself or with someone, that I go to, try to go to the different sessions. Don't always partner with your buddy that you go to. And it's hard to put yourself in that situation, but once you get past the first one, it's way easier to keep going.
Those are great points that you brought up here for someone that's young. I don't want to say younger, but starting out and getting involved in these events. I'm very fortunate. I'm going to the special event show next week, for instance, and I've been going there. My entire career, and it's a couple of decades and then some that I've been going. And I'm one of those people. We have a posse, a group, people that know each other. I always look out for that underdog, though. I'm always thinking of, I'm very fortunate. I can walk into the bar. I'm going to know people there. Someone's going to call and say, what are you doing? We're all getting together here. Meet us here. We saved you a seat. I'm always focused on the person that, like you said, either it's their first time there, so they don't know people, or as you just said, that maybe they're not the extrovert and it's not as easy for them to just walk into a room and start talking to people. And I always focus on people like that, because that's not necessarily me, but I'm thinking we all have to work together, right? Doesn't necessarily always have to be the loud people like myself that are the good people at the work that they do. I think it's very important that organizations like that have either a first-timer reception or new to the group, or those icebreakers where you play the goofy games and you get to meet people. Sometimes you just have to be standing online and look at the person in front of you and Think about saying something about their shoes or what they're doing, or, hey, I haven't been here before. Have you? Can you point me in the right direction? Reach out to the show organizers, or even if it's just a local event, and say, I haven't been here before. Can you introduce me to someone that can maybe introduce me to others? I know this is going to sound crazy. Stand by either the bar or where the coffee is and don't move. And people are going to cycle through and you're going to get to meet a lot of people. And it's a great, conversation breaker to do that. And also, if you see someone that has a lot of people around them, go up to them and say, you have a lot of people around you. I'm new here. Can you take me under your wing? I've had people do that. And you know what? Everyone likes to be stroked like that. And I want to take them under their wing. I was at a show, and that's how I met one of my assistants, because she came to me after she saw me raising my hand in class. Another thing, if you're new and you can muster it up, raise your hand in class, stand up and always introduce yourself with your name and your company. Go, oh, okay. And say something, ask a question that's relevant, and then people will come find you afterwards, and the speaker will acknowledge that. But this person came up to me, and she was younger and a little bit shyer, and I scooped her in because she had the gumption. You just have to somehow try to find it within yourself. And even if you're more of the quieter type, try to put yourself with other people, or ask them, I'm sorry, I know you have a lot of people around you. Can you introduce me to someone that maybe does what I do so you can help me out? I think we're in this, we're in this friendly, we talked about it before, Sarah, your question, relationship building business. Then I feel it's our duty as humans to each other and in our industry community to help each other out. So I think it's just as simple as that. Just find that one person and ask.
I really love these responses. I think that, it can be scary to put yourself out there, but you can really see the benefit of doing so. I'm curious. So we've addressed how you start building your network, but I'm wondering if you both could speak to how do you maintain it over time? How do you maintain these connections that you've made, like after the trade show, 5 years after the trade show? How are you still talking to the same person? What's interesting is that for me, this profession and the people in the industry are not only my colleagues, but they're my friends and family. I mean, I have some relationships that are, over 20 plus years long, just from attending conferences together. We sometimes could probably count how many times we've physically been together because they might not be in our destination. If you haven't figured it out from the accent or the backward sign, I am from New York City. But we've seen them from traveling around the country and the world at different events. When I started, we didn't have that Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. I think now it's easy as, I got to follow you right away. I got to see all you're doing. What a great way to keep in touch with them and see what they're doing and comment and develop that relationship. It's also not easy, Sarah, to keep in touch because you're immersed together in an event, whether it's 4 hours or 4 days. And then you go back and guess what? You have all this stuff to catch up on. And it just sometimes dissipates. A quick text here or there, or reaching out and saying, I don't have business for you, but I know you're the person that's going to help me out. Could you give me some friendly free advice? I love being a connector. It's not always about the money we're going to make, but if I can put two people together, it shows both of them, whether they're clients or vendors, that I'm thinking of them. And you know what? It comes back to you. It's an adage. You put it out there, it's going to come back. You just get a good satisfaction. And that's a great way to keep in touch. I think it's hard for everyone. There's just massive amounts of people. I also, when I, see birthdays or I unfortunately see when bad things happen, I pick up the phone. People don't pick up the phone as much as they should anymore. There's sometimes not everything is a text or an email. I know the art of sending a personalized note is pretty much gone. It's interesting how that went away. But sometimes just picking up the phone, and we don't all leave messages because no one wants to listen to a message, but then you send the text. I called to let you know I'm thinking of, I love you, whatever it may be. And when you read about people, someone's going to see this online. I'm hoping they reach out and say, Jack, I haven't seen you in a while. And I get this a lot. It was wonderful seeing you. Let's connect. So you just have to try to find ways to do it. And those that you're really going to keep in touch with more, or that you really want to keep in touch with more, they can become lifelong friends because we're going through this, again, this
we love this profession, but it is not a crazy profession to be existing in.
Yeah. So kind of adding off what Jaclyn said, those are some great points. I totally agree. I'll say like following on LinkedIn or social media, like I instantly have to do that at a conference. I mean, you get so many business cards, and then when you go to the end of the day, you're like, oh my gosh, who are these people? So you've got to add, and whenever you see them, connect, the name to the face, as you're immersing yourself and meeting tons of people each day and in different sessions. I definitely recommend, adding them on LinkedIn. And kind of like Jaclyn mentioned, it's almost impossible to make sure you're talking to these people on a regular basis. But I would say, like, I try to reach out to those who I really connected with or, kind of taken me under their wing. I'd say maybe like twice a year, each quarter, kind of like, hey, connect. How are your projects going? I'd love to catch up. What availability do you have in the next month? And I think just being open that they have a different busy schedule to what you have. But I think reaching out, 9 times out of 10, it puts a smile on your face when someone reaches out to you that you're like, man, I haven't talked to you in 3 months, but you were thinking of me. Like, that was really great. I mean, it puts a smile on mine. And so I think the same way to someone else, just reach out. I mean, just say like, hey, how are you doing? Work or not work related. And I would say too, like when you meet people, you can kind of get a vibe if it's an organic or if it's very transactional. And I would say stick to those people who you're having conversations with that feel really organic, because at the end of the day, those mentors, those great relationships to help influence your career or even business, they're probably those ones that are organic that you can talk to. That's not just, hey, I need this done by da-da-da-da. Can you send it over? Things like that. I think you kind of get lost in the transaction of the stuff, but those other people, they know too, when you're talking to them, they're like, yeah, I really like talking to them. And they kind of make a note as well.
When you're meeting people and you want it to be real and organic, where do you draw the line between them knowing everything about you and knowing not that much about you? Because obviously you guys work, you guys don't want them to like know what you did last Friday night, obviously. So where do you guys kind of, how do you sort that out for yourselves?
I have no line. I might have figured that out already. So, and that's okay for me. And there are other people that are not. I think it really depends on if you want to draw the line or not and how much you want to engage them. It's a funny thing when we go, us who plan events, go to events as attendees and guests, we're sometimes the worst attendees. We can't just relax and enjoy it. We have to talk about it. I would have done this differently. Should I add that? Oh, that's a good idea. We just can't relax. I mean, you can't just go out for dinner anymore. It's over encompassing. As far as that drawing the line and what they know, that my personality is I'm all out there. I like to share it. I put it out there. I love when I see someone that I might have met. I think we're all talking about going to an industry event, met someone, whether they're local or international, and I post about my family and they comment. I like that camaraderie. That's what I think is important in our profession. It doesn't mean if there are some that say, I'm not on any social media. And thank you, Alexis, for referencing LinkedIn, because I always forget about that, which I shouldn't. But I like when that happens. And there are some people that it's not for them and they don't really want to talk about it. I put in my out of office what I'm doing all the time, right? Where I'm going to be and what I'm doing. It could be something personal, a business. And I think that's another conversation piece, or when you share things, again, trying to keep in touch with people and developing the relationships. So for me, there's not so much of a line. However, I think the other side of your question is, what if someone does have that line? You learn I'm a New Yorker, right? So when people ask me where I'm from at a conference, my answer is, really? They're like, no, really, where are you from? I said, really? Like, you can't figure out where I'm from by now. So we're just different here. But we also learn, I think, in our industry, because we have to take care of guests with dietary restrictions, you have to work with people and even our clients that have certain levels of how much they want to give or how much they want you to pull back. So I think that's just something that you learn just from doing it, and maybe saying the wrong thing once or twice. It happens. It's okay. We recover. We're planning events, for God's sakes. We're not saving lives here. So it's a good question. It's just I really can't relate.
That's okay. How about you, Alexis?
I will say kind of that mantra that Jaclyn shared, where, we're planning events, not saving lives. I think it's very important to keep that at the forefront of your mind, especially when you're meeting new people or you're even at an event of your own where you're just like, I can't take another moment of social interaction. I need to breathe for a second, to keep that at the forefront. But I think I start out a little bit with a line. I kind of gauge how the first couple conversations go. And I'd say maybe on like the third or fourth interaction with that person, if it's continued that long, I definitely get a lot more personal about things going on in my personal life or sharing things like that. Because the reality is like they're interested in you, you're interested in them if you kept the conversation going, and I just kind of feel it out. I definitely wouldn't say I'm an open book all at first, but the more you get to know me 100%, if you want to know it, just ask and I'll probably tell you, things like that.
I'm curious, do either of you have any business relationships in your network where there is a line? And how do those relationships work? Are there some relationships you have that you keep more professional? And are there some that are more personal? And like, what are the differences in interacting with those people, and how do they each impact your career and you moving through your network?
Well, as a business owner, and again, the company I own, I worked at out of college and then bought it. You have to learn that maybe you and your personality is not for everybody. And so I surround myself with the team, whether they're the employees or just vendors we bring in that say, you know what, I think I'm too much for this person, but you're going to be great. I'm going to let you take the lead. You ask the questions, you do the follow-up. So you learn that by trial and error. Again, we're in this live experience. It could be a boring, serious meeting, but it's a live experience, even if it's virtual, that we got to hope that there's going to be an openness of communication, of how people want to communicate. And you just learn that. I can't necessarily think where the line was drawn or we crossed the line and it was a real negative, but I've learned where we just need to pull back and maybe not be so friendly and want to share. But I think, again, we're excited, right? Hey, we got the great menu for your event, or look at this beautiful AV and how it fits right in here in the room. So your personality comes out in that. I can't necessarily think of where it is totally backfired, but I've known where I've had to pull back, even just attire, and we could talk about the pandemic and how attire has changed. But when you're working into certain places, where can you wear jeans and a blazer and boots and be really cool? Or do you need to wear a suit and, pantyhose and et cetera, and express yourselves that way? Or even we'll refer to guests sometimes, as Mr. or Ms. or Sir. No one better ever call me ma'am. I'll take Miss or Madame, but Mademoiselle. So, but you learn those things. It's trial and error as you go ahead. Alexa, I'd love to hear how you feel about this, being a big.
Yeah, I'll say I don't know of anyone where there's been a strict line drawn yet in my experience. Not to say that it won't happen, or I just haven't encountered that yet. But one thing I think is our industry, we're very adaptable. Like if you want Coca-Cola and the next person wants Pepsi, we're probably going to figure out how to do it. And so I think just having that adaptability in your day-to-day work, it kind of leads in a little bit to your personality to just be able to read someone and figure out how much they're engaging and what to engage back. And I also think the flip side, especially like in office culture and things, engagement's a big piece that lots of companies like to focus on. And a lot of that comes into asking about your personal life. Like they don't want to just know what you're doing day to day at work. Like, what are your top 5 priorities? They're like, oh, what'd you do over the weekend? And so I think just like that casual conversation that's been integrated through companies that people already work at, it's almost become that standard small talk that you start every conversation with when you meet someone new.
Is there any, let's call it a secret sauce that you guys utilize when you do want to grow your network? Are there things that you lean on, people you talk to? Do you have like a system in place that you're like, hey, I want to know so-and-so. How do I make that happen? And I'm going to go do it.
I think I know from a fact from living it, the secret sauce is to reach out and reference something that you know about them. So when I was looking to get into this profession, we didn't have the internet, so I was reading the trade magazines, and I found the woman who owned this company, and I called her. I should know this was not a normal industry when she called me back late at night, like after 6. Like, it's 9 to 5, and she's calling late. Should have went the other way, right? But I said, I read about you in an industry magazine, and I really enjoyed what I read. And guess what? I still do that to this day. Although the magazine might not be in print, but it might be online, right? And people like to be told, I recognize you. I heard what you had to say. I saw that was interesting. Now I saw your picture on Instagram. You don't know me, but that was really cool. Or how could I do that? So you could approach people you don't know that way. But I also think it's a great way, even with people that you do know, that maybe you need to ask a friendly free advice or a favor. Hey, I'm reaching out to you. I need some help. But just so you know, when I was, looking for your email, I saw this picture of something you did. That was really great. I'm not saying you'd want to buy them or bribe them, but it's just it's again, going back to the conversation we've been having, it's a way to connect. So I think that's really important with that secret source. There's the Brooklyn accent for you. Just to give them something that's personal to them, which is funny because we were just talking in the last conversation, how personal or close do you get? But you might you're not stalking, but you might look at their Facebook page and see somebody with their family and say, P.S. I know this might sound weird, but I happen to look at your Facebook page and I saw that great thing with your family. People love that, or else they shouldn't put it out there, right, for the public to see. So I think it's just referencing something that they've done good or you heard them speak just makes people feel really good about themselves, about what they've done, and someone recognized it.
I agree. To piggyback, I agree with everything that you said. I think to piggyback off, it's just really as simple as doing your homework. I mean, no one loves especially if you work with the same person, or, you're kind of relying on that same person, or maybe the same handful of people that you always reach out to with questions or support or things like that. If you're constantly just asking like, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? And you haven't necessarily developed up that relationship yet, it kind of seems like a little bit of a one-sided relationship. And so being able to acknowledge them and things that they've done, or just even saying like, hey, I'm paying attention, and giving them that acknowledgement, I think it goes really a long way. I'd almost look at it as like whenever you go into an interview for a company, like you probably don't know nothing about them. You've probably read something. And so I'd say I'd do the same thing. Like if you want to reach out to someone new, it's as simple as that. And a lot of times you might realize whenever you're scoping through their profile or things like that, you're like, oh my gosh, they support that too. Like I care about that. And it's just so easy to make a connection.
Is there anything that either of you two want to speak on that we haven't asked you?
I'm going to add something to that secret sauce, because we were talking about people maybe we don't know. I also find it very interesting. I love, which I'm trying to say, I find it odd. I'll get an email. Hey, a colleague of mine told me you're someone I should call about this or reach out to. My thinking is, why wouldn't you mention that colleague? So I always am very suspect of that the world
suspicious.
Is such a big world, but it's gotten so much smaller, especially with that interweb and all the social media, that being able to say, so-and-so referred me, they told me they were good, or I was at an event last night, they mentioned your name, they didn't even tell me to call you, but I'm calling you. And guess what? CC is a very powerful tool. CC that person, integrate them. So I'm known for what they call a Jack email. Jaclyn, short for Jack, I refer to myself as Jack. I'll write an email and I'll explain the whole history, how I know this person, how they know me, how they affected my life, a funny tidbit. And I want to engage people to connect. Many times that is almost as important as the service and the price and the thing that you're procuring from them, right? Again, that's the whole reason you've put our minds together here today, is what we're getting from that relationship. And I just feel that we all need to take advantage of that. Going back to your initial conversation during the pandemic, we brought people onto our team to help respond to clients after we furloughed the whole company, one of the worst things that's ever happened. And that they might have been vendors of ours, and you hate to say the word vendor supplier, but partners. And we brought them onto our team, and we actually weren't scared that their domain was different than empireforce.com. That we would say, hey, client, look who's on our team. This company does this with us. That's who we engage. And they're going to come on this email, and we're going to talk about the event. You also should have open relationships. This is a whole other meeting of the minds you could do about pricing and all. They might charge you one price, and I'm saying, well, we're charging this price, and these are how our fees work. If you can have partners and colleagues in the industry that you have that open relationship with, that I always hear that you could open the kimono with, and you can be very upfront and say, we're going to be on the call with our client. Because Alexis could be a client of ours, right? We're an intermediary planner, and Alexis is, the end user, the organization or corporation, whoever it may be. And we could say, these are our best supplier partners for what your project's going to be. And we're going to work together in servicing you. That's an honest way to approach it. The client doesn't think that I own all the technical production equipment and my name should be on the road cases that are pushing in. But we're going to know the right company to bring in there. And there's nothing wrong in saying, here's who our partner is. I think the days of where, if you hand a business card to someone, you shouldn't do that because they're going to call you. They can easily figure out how to get in touch with you. You should want your clients to be enlightened about the people that you surround yourself with. And clients should be respectful of, that's my vendor's partner. You're not going to call them direct. I want to even eliminate that from our thought process, but think of the collaborative, think of it positively, the collaborative part of it, as opposed to the negative while you introduce them. And this is something else that came up during the pandemic. We worked with some of our vendor partners in stranger ways than we ever did before. We have them put the proposal together on our letterhead and send it out, whatever we may have done, because we needed to get the job done. And I go back to, it's interesting how we're nearing the end of this, I guess. Well, you know me, I could talk for days. It's
good to know. It's good to know, though.
We should not forget the camaraderie and the way we worked together then in this literally medium, how we're sitting here now, in order to go forward. When we're all getting busy, you should be able to rely on someone and say, you don't want to turn away business, but can I bring you onto my team to help service business? It's nice that you're talking about relationships, because that's how any of us got here, right? And building our network. And you are very smart to bringing this meeting of the minds together. You see what I did there with your organization. I'm honored to be one of your smart visionary women winners last year, honorees. So, and may I take this time to give a big shout out to Marin Bright, because, we all love her, and we're so sorry about what had happened, and really wanted to make sure we acknowledge that. But what she has pulled together with so many smart people and women in your organization is wonderful. So, we all just have to support each other in the industry, whatever it may be. And it's really wonderful that you're focusing on relationships. And I know I'm honored to be here part of this, and with my new friend, Alexis.
Thank you, Jaclyn.
Yeah, this has been amazing. I have 2 small other thoughts I wanted to add. When you're working with your vendor partners, or, with the hotel, or with your AV team, or your DMCs, whatever that might be, regardless that, you're likely paying them something and there's some contract you're basing it off of. At the end of the day, remember, you guys both want the same thing. You both want the user, your guests, to be happy. So regardless of how you get there, everyone's working towards the same goal. So I would recommend always keeping that in mind. When you've got a stakeholder asking you questions or things like that, think of it with that mindset. And the other thing I would say is, it's a small world. 9 times out of 10, you are running into the same people. And so even though you might be like, oh my gosh, why is this person messaging me on LinkedIn? Or why are they sending me so many emails? Even just saying like, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. At this time, I don't know if it's the best fit for our company, but I'll be sure to reach out if anything changes. Like, just acknowledge them. It goes a long way to just not delete the email or not respond, leave them on read. Because they might move to another company, or you might move to another company where you do need to work together.
Well said. Mm-hmm. Well said.
Wonderful. Well, if there isn't anything else, I just want to thank you both so much for being here. Once again, today we were joined by Jaclyn Bernstein, President and owner of Empire Force Events, as well as a Smart Woman winner, Visionary Award winner in 2023. And we were also joined today by Alexis Dick, an event planner at Heating, Air Conditioning, and Refrigeration Distributors International, or HARDI. I learned a lot.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, now we're part of the same family. We have a relationship now. We had it before. Now we really have it.
Building connections, talking over the internet.
Yeah.
Thanks for the honor, and thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you both so much. Wonderful to meet everyone, and honored to be a part of this.
Thank you both so much, and we appreciate your time and coming with such thoughtful answers to our questions. And we hope to see you guys around in the future. We hope. Have a great day.
Thanks again.
You've been listening to Meeting of the Minds, a Smart Meetings podcast. Interested in joining the conversation or have a suggestion for a future topic? Connect with us at editor@smartmeetings.com.